Hello again, this is Preheat. Welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. So a lot has changed for Arcane, especially Spellslinger, and I have now done Sims. Luckily, we have some APL writers who are really talented, like Porum, who's got us started on that thing, and a lot of people have been kind of contributing, trying to figure out more ways to get more damage. So now we have the updates for you. And I was actually explaining this to my friend in Discord because I was showing him how to play Arcane since he's interested. And I figured, you know what? This is actually a really good thing to clip together, make a video out of it. So this is going to be a mix of gameplay and explanations. Some of it's going to be covering the talents that you already understand, but a lot of it's going to be new information. So make sure you watch to the end. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before combat begins, you're going to use evocation, and then you're going to use your little potion. And like this is like as combat's beginning. And then I'm going to throw out an orb, and I will always have a clear cast. So I can throw out that clear cast there. And then we're going to surge into Barrage Touch of the Magi, Shifting Power. Now, this is only good if you have a boss that's going to live like past a minute. So again, in today's testing, it's like it was just kind of fucked because the boss just died too fast. Okay. And then after that, you want to queue a Blast into Barrage. So those are like the actions. They're like kind of locked in. It's always like that same rotation. So Evocation, use the cast time on your trinket. Combat's about to begin. You orb into missiles. You do Arcane Surge, and then as that's finishing, you're spamming the macro or you're spamming both buttons, but you want to barrage into Touch of the Magi in that order. It has to be in that order because it's going to use the 4. The barrage will be midair before it hits the target. Touch of the Magi applies, and then you now have 4 charges up, and it goes into the Touch of the Magi. That's the goal here. So your Surge is not in the Touch of the Magi now. So the primary goal here is we're just trying to, well, there's 2 goals. Okay, so number 1, Spellslinger generates splinters in a couple different ways. So it gets them from Nether Precision. Anytime you consume Nether Precision, which is from consuming Clear Casting. If you consume Clear Casting, you get 2 stacks of Nether Precision. Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage, consume those. You get splinters from consuming them. Another way you get splinters is through your like cooldowns. So like Arcane Surge gives you 8 and it doubles your gain while it's up. You also get them from Orb. You also get them from Shifting Power. And it's just a ton of your damage. If you add it all up, it's like 30% of your damage. So Splinter Storm damage is pretty important. In theory, like we'll have Splinter Storm. So like once we hit 8, it'll pop it. But again, sometimes not useful. But the goal is just get as many splinters out as possible. So use as many Nether Precisions as possible. And then the secondary goal is just to use as many barrages as possible. So barrage is like a really hard-hitting spell, and we got a lot of stuff that juices it up. So Nether Precision's juicing it by 20%. We also just have Arcane Charges, which it gets like 30% per charge plus whatever your mastery is. On top of that, we also have Harmony, which is going to give it stacks just whenever you missiles. You don't really care about playing around this at all, really. It's just kind of a passive thing, but it's nice. And then we also have like the target taking more damage through Arcane Debilitation. In Execute, it just deals double damage. So it's like crazy in Execute. Also, whenever we use it, we have a chance to proc an orb. So it can be like a builder. You could think of it that way. We also have Spellfrost Teachings, which is another way that Barrage can proc, or like any damage really can proc an orb. So like we have a lot of like passive Arcane Charge generation here. And then Barrage also, like the most important part is this. So Arcane Cleave deals additional damage to additional enemies, right? But then we take that with Resonance. This is in single target too. We take this talent. It's just always good. It's just 10% more damage on Arcane Barrage. But if we have 4 more targets, because we're hitting 5, then of course that's 40%. So that's where some of the funnel comes from, especially in Execute. But the other part of the funnel is the orbs, right? Whenever we do the barrage, we have the chance to throw out the orbs for free, plus here. So we just get a lot of free Arcane Charges in the AOE. So it's really, really good for that. Typically, how the rotation looks is you end up in like this weird rotation where you're trying to fish for a clear casting. So like, let's say all my cooldowns are down and I don't have 4 charges, right? What I'm going to do in this situation right here, obviously I'm looking at like Orb or Touch of the Magi, but let's just assume those are all gone, right? I would just barrage. Like, and you're literally just barraging until you get a clear cast proc. This is what you do between your cooldowns. This is like your build phase or whatever. Oh man, I'm getting super unlucky here. Okay, yeah, and then you get a clear cast, and then once you clear cast, you're gonna do, if you get 2 charges here, you do a blast into a blast barrage. So what's happening there is the first blast consumes the first stack of Nether Precision, and I have a second stack, right? So I'm consuming that twice because the blast is being queued into the barrage. So this is kind of similar to like Kyrian, like we were talking about before. Like since we're consuming it twice, since we're queuing the blast into the barrage, very similar to Radiant Spark. We also have Magni Spark.
Sorry, was that with NP or?
Yeah. Nether Precision, we get 2 stacks, right? So like if I get Clear Casting and I use it, I have 2 stacks, right? So here, since I have 2 charges, I'm going to blast. And then even though I have 4, I'm going to blast into a barrage there. Now there are exceptions to this rule. So like, let's say Touch of the Magi is up, right? And I use this missiles. And I'm not in this situation here. Like, let's say I have charges. I'll just give myself charges. If I'm in this situation where I have Nether Precision, 4 charges, I can barrage into Touch of the Magi barrage. And that consumes 4 charges and Nether Precision twice there. So that's great, right? We love that. Also, if you have Intuition procs, so Intuition is this one right here, 4-piece. Just got lucky with that. So if you're in the situation where you have no clear cast, you just send it. It's just a builder, and then you send it again, right? It's just like a little passive thing. We don't really think about too much. But if we get that proc with a clear casting, that's like really good, because what we can do is, I'm trying to get the proc here. We can send the missiles, and then like, let's say I have 2 charges here. I can just do 2 back-to-back barrages, and both of those would have 4 charges with precision. But actually on the second one, it'd be even better if I queued the blast into the barrage, right? Because then we would get slightly more damage. That's only below 3 targets though, that we'd want to do that. But yeah, it's like, it's all just about like gaming how many Nether Precisions we use and sending out as many barrages as possible. I'm gonna pre-evocate. Normally I wouldn't have 3 charges, but it probably doesn't matter too much, right? And I'm gonna orb into missiles, and then like potion, trinket, arcane surge into blast barrage, shifting power here. And then this Nether Precision's about to end, so right at the very last second, I get that last bit in there. Now here I'm going to missiles into orb, and I got the orb to proc, or the proc there from the Nether Precision. So I was able to basically send 2 of those in a row. The orb logic is if you have Arcane Orb and you're 2 charges or less, then you send the orb. If you have this situation right here where I've got clear casting and 2 charges, I would do the Arcane Missiles into Blast Barrage. And if I ever have missiles and 0 charges, I always send the missiles on its own into Blast Barrage. So it's like literally like the same rotation just over and over and over again. This is if you get lucky though, because like you won't always have a clear cast, right? It's like if you ever run into this situation here, I'm just barraging, right? I'm just barraging. And then orb is up, so like I can just throw out the orb. Oh, I get a missiles, great. And then, okay, right here, so I clipped it. If you're ever channeling missiles and you hit 4 charges, and Aether Attunement isn't up, which is a talent we haven't talked about yet. But if we don't have that Aether Attunement, yeah, the AOE does like more damage in single target too. We instantly clip to do the Blast Barrage. So one of the things that we're fulfilling here, this is like the other thing that's kind of like Radiant Spark. This is like Radiant Spark 2.0 for the War Within. If we put in 3 of these spells into a Touch of the Magi, it's going to explode and deal extra damage, and all 3 of those spells are going to hit twice. So this is the reason why we do the missiles before we do the whole like opener, because we want the Arcane Surge to be into a barrage that's juiced up with Nether Precision, and it'll have 8 stacks of Harmony, we'll have like a Big Brain proc, we'll have Arcane Debilitation up, like we got like a lot of shit in here, right? So it's going to do a really juiced up barrage, and that first barrage is going to duplicate, so it'll do double damage on that. And then the missiles is like a given, like we'll definitely use missiles and touch. It's only going to be the first missile that hits though, so it's not really, like the missiles doubling the missile damage doesn't really matter. But the important thing is just getting the blast in there. The blast needs to be in there. So if you're ever in a situation where you just got like crazy luck with your orbs and you like didn't have to blast at all, you just want to like sneak a blast in there at some point before it ends so that you proc the explosion. So in touch, pretty much the prio is like number 1, if we have 4 charges and Nether Precision, barrage, just straight up. Like barrage is just insane with Nether Precision, 4 charges. And then it's like, if we don't have 4 charges and we don't have Nether Precision, then we missiles. If we're in a situation where we're at 3 charges and only 1 stack of Nether Precision, then we can also missile in that situation. But if we have 2 stacks of Nether Precision and we're at least 2 charges, then we do the Blast Barrage. Now, sometimes you get really unlucky. Sometimes you'll have a situation where you get a clear cast and you press this, missiles, and you don't get 2 charges here, right? Sometimes you only get 1 charge. If that ever happens, you do not Arcane Blast. Okay, Arcane Blasting below 2 charges, hard banned. So in that case, what you do is literally just send a barrage. Just send the barrage. And you'll find a lot of the time, like the correct decision is just send barrages. Just mash barrage, because you're just trying to fish for this proc right here, right? This is really what you want. And yeah, so the missiles clipping thing, in cooldowns, you want to clip your missiles on the GCD. So like as soon as you can, if you have like Surge and Touch of the Magi up. the only exception to that is in single target. Like you wouldn't want to do that for like Aether Attunement, like we talked about, because it's like it increases the damage on it too. It's not just AOE, so it'll deal like double damage. But there are target counts where you would stop following that logic. So like in AOE, if you're ever channeling missiles and it's like 5 or more targets and you get 4 charges, you just immediately barrage. You don't let the missiles finish. Just send that shit. Also, you do use Arcane Explosion. However, you have to have this talent, Reverberate. So in Mythic Plus, this is the build I like because I've got Arcane Cleave. Everything else is single target. The only swap here is Reverberate. And in this case, what I'm going to do is if I don't have Clear Casting and I am below 4 charges, I will use Arcane Explosion, and that will get me hopefully to 4 charges. So the opener in AoE is basically the same as single target up until a point. So same idea, we want to use Evocation outside of combat, hopefully use our Trinket as well. And then after that, we're going to send out the Arcane Orb into the missiles. And then we're going to do the Arcane Surge into the Barrage Touch of the Magi. But here I'm actually going to cast an Arcane Blast into Barrage. And then here's where the bot would actually use Shifting Power, like right after this. I found it like in practice, this doesn't really feel like it's that big of a gain. I think like if the pulls are shorter, it might actually be a detriment. But obviously if the pull goes like really long, then it turns out to be a gain. But I find that my burst in AoE is like usually much, much higher if I don't go that route. But essentially after that, we're just trying to reach two situations here. We want to have Nether Precision, and we want to have 4 charges of Arcane Charges down here. So whatever we have to do to get to that point is what we're going to do. So the priorities basically, if we have Arcane Orb, we want to send that because that's going to probably top us off like in AoE. Like if I just throw out like an orb, you'll see a lot of these just like return orbs, right? So it's like very easy to like continuously get your charges back. However, if we don't have Nether Precision up, we're going to want to make sure that we like use that Nether Precision. And you can clip it, like it's totally fine to clip it. We just want to make sure that we get the buff from Nether Precision. We don't really care so much about the missiles actually finishing channeling. Unless we have Aether Attunement up, which is only going to happen every 3 Arcane Missiles. So if we're ever in a situation where, like, let's say I don't have orbs, I'm just going to waste these orbs over here. So let's say I'm in a position here where like I don't have orbs, but I have Clear Casting and these, I might actually let this fully channel out so that I can then get that cast off with another precision. Now here I have the Intuition buff for my 4-piece. And I have this Nether Precision. Still, I would just send the Barrage on its own because that's going to instantly refill my 4 charges. The main thing here is we're just trying to like use as many 4-charge Arcane Barrages as possible while also using Clear Cast to get Nether Precision to then spend. So another situation you're going to be in, I'm going to try to get rid of my charges here. But yeah, if we don't have like the Clear Casting proc or whatever and we have 4 charges, just send the Barrage. That's fine. If I am in a situation like this where I don't have Orb, I don't have Clear Casting, I'm just going to cast Arcane Explosion. And then here I would finish off with that missile and then Barrage, right? Because that's getting my Nether Precision and it's getting my 4 charges. If I'm ever in this situation here where I have Nether Precision, no charges, I would use Arcane Explosion. I waited too long because I was talking, but you'd use Arcane Explosion to get to 4 charges and then send the Barrage, right? And typically, yeah, it will return it. I mean, you can see that happens a lot. And then so like right here, I have missiles available. And, you know, I used the missiles and I didn't end up with 4. I could just Arcane Explosion, get that, and then look, I have the Intuition proc, so now I can use 2 barrages in a row. But essentially the idea is we're just trying to maximize how many 4-charge Arcane Charge barrages we can get off, while also making sure to use the Arcane Missile for the Nether Precision buff and canceling it, like clipping the cast so that we get the Nether Precision unless we have this Aether Attunement buff. And I think a general rule, like if you get lost in AoE and you aren't sure like what to press, probably the best thing to press is just like Arcane Barrage. In most cases, if you aren't at 4 charges, it's probably best to press an Arcane Explosion so that you have more charges. But again, if you lose your place, just pressing Barrage is probably a good fallback. So just keep in mind, when in doubt, Arcane Barrage. So you'll end up in situations like this too, which is really great. So like if we can get like this 20 stack on Harmony, here, like set up before the pull, one thing I like to do is like if the pull's winding down and it's like just one target, typically the best thing to do would just like be like spam barrage, right? But if I can get a clear cast and I can stack it up to 20 for the next pull, see, it doesn't have a duration, right? This is just on me forever. So I can go into that next pull like fully juiced up. And every 3 clear casts, I'm also going to have Aether Attunement, so that's another thing you can prep. Typically it's only 3 missiles, but on the first one, it's going to be 4. The reason why is because the first missiles gives you the first stack of the proc, and then you go 3, and then once you consume 3, you get the new buff. Consuming that new buff gives you 1. So basically, it's like you get shorted 1 on the pull, but afterwards, it's always just 3. But yeah, like juicing up the harmony between the pulls is really great. But make sure that you press mirror image, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have big aggro, right? And even these little homies, like they're really great. They pause our threat, but like you got to watch out too, because like they may end up disappearing here in 40 seconds. And I've had it happen in Mythic Plus where they like 40 seconds later when they disappear, suddenly I have threat. So I'm like really quick to like press the invis. But yeah, it's like the threat on this is like pretty high. Definitely got to watch out. And then also another thing in Mythic Plus, so like not every pull lasts long enough to get your full like nut off. Sometimes you gotta just like send the shit because the pull's gonna like die too fast. You'll see it very common, right? Like your target that has Touch of Magi will just get absolutely fucking dunked, right? Because you're doing like a ton of prio damage. So like if you're ever in a situation where you notice that like your cooldowns aren't fully getting used, you need to like start breaking them up. So instead of doing like the big burn every pull, like every other pull, I might just do like half of it and then half later. You just got to play it by ear, but like it's pretty common to have it where it's just like, damn, that thing died way too fast. Like, fuck me. I just have to like do something different. In that case, I would probably like skip out on the evocate unless you're out of combat. Just don't evocate unless you're out of combat. Sometimes I don't even surge because I just know that like the pack's gonna die too fast. So I'll just send, instead of like trying to get the 4 charges before I send the touch, I'll just like send the touch natty just so I can like get to my damage. But yeah, that's like edge case stuff. And as far as gear goes, you're gonna want crit and verse. These are your best stats. Versatility is really great because it increases our Spellslinger damage and it makes us take less damage. And Mythic Plus is like we're just taking infinite damage, so it's really great for that. Crit, obviously, we just like crit. In AOE, crit is better than verse. In single target, verse is better than crit, but you know, just go both. In terms of gear, I mean, the PvP gear is really good because it all has crit verse on it pretty much. Obviously, you want the special items, right? Like the cantrip staff, the ring. The cloak is nice too. And then for trinkets, you're going to definitely want this thing because this thing is nutty. It doesn't do anything, but it does give you a huge steroid every 2 minutes. And then Spy Master, this one's a little weird. So you pretty much use this as a stat stick, but let's say you like did the opener with the serum. On the next send of Surge, you could Spy Master on it, or you could save it. So I kind of just like play it by ear. If I notice the target's approaching 35%, because that's when I know like my damage is going to go insane, I might just wait a little bit for the next Surge that's in Execute. Because if I can go into Surge Execute with like 40 stacks of this shit, this is like insane. Like this buff is not okay. 30,000 int. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Nothing weird about that. Yeah, so you'll just go fucking Super Saiyan. Unfortunately, if you die, you lose these stacks. Yeah, so embellishments, they don't really matter. All the embellishments suck ass. So you can just like run whatever. But I think this one's the best one. It's just the one where you just like have a chance of proc damage. And obviously the PvP gear, you have a socket that's separate for that. It's this item Vicious Jeweler's setting. You want to make sure you put those in your PvP slots. So like helmet is my off piece for that reason. Belt, bracers, and then obviously put 2 sockets in the rings, 2 sockets in the neck. You could also go off piece on the chest because the chest kind of sucks. It's mastery and it haste. That's like terrible, right? So you just got like weigh the extra socket versus having the worst stats in the chest. I actually don't mind having just like a little mastery, but I'm thinking about actually swapping this out.
You track your splinters at all?
No. So you can with the weakauras that like counts them, but it's really not worth it because you're just gonna like be constantly proccing shit. You don't really care. Just send the shit. There's no like interaction between splinters and gameplay that isn't already baked into the rotation.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I mean we're like pretty good, but I will say like in keys, I don't know what they did this last week, but it's unholy what they've done. Like the amount of damage intake is like not okay. You want to kind of play in melee too, which is like kind of unfortunate because if you're in melee, your missiles take shorter time to hit the target, so you have like a faster high voltage giving you charges because it's on impact. If you're in melee, your orbs will proc your 4 charges faster too because they're like right there. So there's like a decent gain to be in melee, but the only issue with melee is if you're in melee and you do the touch after barrage, you have less leeway with it. So what I recommend is using this macro. I have it as a separate keybind because I like to do it manually myself unless I'm like in melee. But if I am in melee, I use this macro instead, and it's just cast sequence, barrage into touch. That way I can just 2 touches, by the way, because you want it to break the macro after it does the first one. But this allows me to yeah, so it's good if you're close. Makes it less terrible. And yeah, just, you know, evocation with everything else is really great, especially in single target. But what's really important about it is just that it kind of primes you because it gives you the clear cast. And really using that out of combat is like a lot more beneficial than using it in combat. Like, it's still worth it in combat, but if you can sneak it in between pulls, it's pretty fucking juicy. Same with the trinket, because then you can just fucking start blasting.
Makes sense.
And yeah, just make sure you just like press shifting power on cooldown. Like that's something that I think a lot of people don't do, and I'm honestly guilty of that too. Like, just making sure that you like always send shifting power as soon as it pops up is just really big, especially if it's like in between combat. It's really good. So yeah, that's pretty much Arcane in a nutshell. Like, it's pretty simple and straightforward to play. It actually gets easier in AoE, which is nice too. But really just, you know, try to not ever press Arcane Blast if you have below 2 charges. Like, that's the biggest mistake you can make by far. I didn't mention race. Mechanome based race, I mentioned that before, but best race for raid, obviously. And then for Mythic Plus, I think it's going to be Dwarf, right? Because the damage from like poisons is crazy. You can just like turn off poison. And then if you want to play Horde, Orc is great. It's like the second best. I think it's like 2% or 0.2% behind Mechanome, so like very minimal difference. Oh, stops. So yeah, Supernova, great stop, right? We love this talent. Even better if you pick up time manipulation, because every time you cast a clear cast, it should like reduce the cooldown on it. But you have to give up cumulative shielding for that, so that's kind of sad. I think it's probably worth it, but I'm not doing it right now. And obviously, like, if you're in melee, Blast Wave is like really fucking nice. But if you're ever in a group with a Frost Mage, definitely go Dragon's Breath instead, because the roots are gonna fuck up your Supernova. But like, you actually get like a lot of stops if you go time manipulation. So it's pretty great. And then this is a new talent, so they made it so whenever your barrier is removed, it reduces the cooldown. This does work with your own barrier's cooldown if you mass barrier other people. So if I mass barrier and I've got 20 seconds of cooldown on my barrier and the whole group gets their barrier consumed, I can instantly barrier again, because that's going to be 4 seconds in 5 people. So it's really nice. Lots and lots of personal barriers. And Arcane's barrier is just like better than like the other barriers too, right? Because all the barriers have have like a attribute to them, but ours just, you know, duration of all harmful magic effects reduced by 40%, magic damage taken reduced by 25%. That's pretty good. So the only reason why a blast even is like used is because we can queue a blast into a barrage, so we can get like 3 uses of it. So like the first one is good because you know, we're like getting the 1 arcane charge we probably need on average. High voltage, which is this talent. This is whenever we use our clear casting, we get charges. On average, you're going to get either 1 or 2 charges per missile. So you're almost always going to be at 2 charges after you finish your missiles. So the first blast is double purpose because you're getting another precision you consumed, and you're also getting 1 charge guaranteed. And then the second one will take you to 4, and also you can queue the barrage from it. So that's like the real value in it, is that you're getting double duty. You're getting to get charges plus spending precision, plus you get extra 1. If you were to, let's say, go Presence of Mind instead, the gain is erased. And in fact, if you were to play this talent, what you'd do instead of using 2, you'd cancel aura it after you use the first one. So it'd be like 1 instant cast barrage into a cancel aura into a hard cast barrage into barrage, because it's just like blast is like that bad. They keep nerfing it, and it's like the reason why the rotation's so degen right now is because our mastery is useless and blast does no damage. But they keep nerfing blast, I think, just because they don't really know what they're doing. So it's like you're just making it more degenerate when you nerf blast. They need to buff blast to fix this rotation, or else we're just going to do this brain dead shit. We're just like spamming arcane barrage over and over again until we get a clear cast proc. It's like really stupid, but it is worth it.
Do you take that last talent in like Mythic Plus on the hero tree?
Yeah, I would definitely take this in Mythic Plus. I would also take this if you're ever testing a boss and the boss isn't going to die, or like you're not going to wipe in like 2 minutes. I think if the fight goes like over maybe 2.5 minutes, like on average, then you would remove this. but it's a little risky, right? Because like if you have a short wipe, you're going to do like way less damage. But if you have a long pull and you don't have this talent, then you'll do like 30% more damage. So a bit of a gamble. It stacks all the way up to 250. And at 250, it's going to be ticking every like second or so for like 600k. So it actually is like insanely strong as long as you don't lose your stacks. I also don't know if I would take this in AoE, just like in general, because a lot of your shit is going to like give splinters to the wrong target. Like orbs are going to go on the first target they hit, so that may not necessarily be the boss. Shifting power is just going to fire at random targets within 40 yards, so that one's also going to be kind of inting. But if you can manage to keep it up on like 2 targets, it's probably the most broken shit ever. Technology, if the fight goes like over 3 minutes, you uncheck this one, Splinter Storm. If you untalent this, it just gives you like 30% more damage. They used to have a component on this where you got clear casting, but they removed it, and now it's better to just remove it. So just -1 talent, it's like 30 damage, 30%, but obviously if the fight's short, like testing today, then it's not worth it. Over here, so this talent's bugged and it's backwards, so you never take this talent. This talent's bugged and the second point in it does nothing for you, so you would never take this one. High voltage is too good to pass up, so you're basically locked into this build. There are some talents that can move, but it's really just like the 2. So like dematerialize and reverberate, these 2 can move. You can put these elsewhere, like energize familiar. You can put reverb, you know, somewhere else. But for the most part, the only real swap you make is these 2. So Arcane Cleave is going to be for Mythic Plus or AoE. There's ever like more than 1 target, and then this one's just pure single target. All right, and that is going to do it for the updates on Spellslinger Arcane as of today. And again, they've changed this a lot since I put out my video. They'll probably change it a lot more. So keep in mind, you know, things are constantly shifting. But if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.